We know that there are issues recruiting and retaining teachers in our schools. I think 1 in 5 quit in the first 2 years. So what's your plan to tackle that?
This is a massive problem, and especially because we know that teacher quality is the most important factor in driving up outcomes for children and young people where it comes to what happens within school. That's why I'm setting out Labour's plans to make sure that we are supporting people into teaching. We do face this real crisis, but more importantly, that we keep them there. I think the best recruitment strategy is a really strong retention strategy. So we'll introduce new payments for early career teachers when they complete their training. We'll reform the very complicated landscape that exists at the moment with some of those wider payments. But also Labour will insist that all new teachers coming into teaching will have to have qualified teacher status or be working towards it. For me, this is about sending a really important signal that we value and respect the work of our teachers. We know it's an incredibly skilled job, and I want to reset that relationship between government and the profession.
So it's a one-off payment. Just how much is it again?
So it'll be in total £15 million, paid for by ending the tax breaks on private schools.
So
£2,400 for the individual teacher.
Right. I understand, the issues that you have in trying to keep people in the profession, but it's experienced and senior teachers who've experienced the biggest fall in real terms pay, down 13% from 2010, according to the IFS. So would you give them a pay rise?
It's a complicated picture in terms of why people are leaving. I don't think there's one particular measure that will address everything. But where it comes to what I've set out around changes on workload, on Ofsted, on better support within our schools around mental health, there are a lot of the big challenges that school leaders and more experienced staff in particular will raise with me.
My question was, will you give experienced teachers a pay rise?
Under the last Labour government, experienced teachers, all teachers, saw sustained pay rises. They haven't seen that.
That was 13 years ago. I'm asking what you do now. Would you give them a pay rise now?
Well, I think if you compare and contrast our record from last time around with the record of the Conservatives, which is a 13% real terms pay cut for teachers on average over the course of the last decade. But the economy is in a parlous state. The Conservatives crashed the economy. They were incredibly reckless in the approach that they took. We're committed to being serious about the negotiations that we would have in getting to a better position. All teachers, I believe, deserve a fair kind of support, fair pay for the work they do, but also to be recognised for their incredible professionalism.
The pay review body has recommended that teachers get a 6.5% pay rise next year. So would a Labour government accept that?
Well, that's what we understand to be the case, but the government won't publish the independent pay review body's report. I want to see it. I think teachers deserve to see it. School leaders who are trying to plan their budgets for September urgently need to see it.
Of course you want to see it. Everyone wants to see it. I want to see it. The viewers want to see it. Would you accept a 6.5 pay rise for teachers?
Well, we're speculating on what we think it might be.
OK, well, my question is...
I would see that as the start...
Would you accept a 6.5% pay rise for teachers?
I would see that as the starting point for negotiation. We can't get anywhere unless we're prepared to negotiate. As I understand it...
What does that mean, the starting point for negotiation? Does that mean you would want to give them more than 6.5%? Does that mean you want to... I just don't understand. What does that mean?
As I understand it, there have been no serious negotiations led by the Secretary of State since April. So it's little wonder that we are facing further strike action this week because she won't talk to them. She won't publish the report and she won't speak to the teaching unions. I will be talking to them, trying to find a way through it, resolving issues around pay, resolving issues around workload. And what I'm setting out this week is a really ambitious plan for how we respect and appreciate teachers for what they're doing, give them better ongoing professional development and more support for early career teachers with that new retention payment, all paid for by ending the tax breaks on private schools.
So would... I'm sorry that you probably feel like I just keep going on about this, but the reason is because I don't really understand the answer that you're giving me. Would Labour accept a 6.5% pay rise for teachers?
Well, I want to see the report. We all want to see the report.
I'm not asking about the report. I'm just asking a straight question. 6.5% for teachers.
I'm not going to come on this programme and commit to a figure. I wouldn't expect the Secretary of State to do that either. That is what will happen during the course of a negotiation where you will arrive at a position that everyone can live with. So I wouldn't expect the Secretary of State to be committing to that number. What I do expect the Secretary of State to be doing, I think what any sensible and credible government would be doing, would be trying to find a way through the impasse, publishing the report, committing to talks, getting serious about it, not constantly belittling teachers, picking fights in newspapers and focusing on peripheral, narrow issues. The most important thing that parents want to know right now is the teacher in front of my child's class qualified? Are they properly supported for what they're doing? And can we get these strikes to come to an end?
In principle, should the government accept the pay review recommendations?
Well, they've said that they will previously, so we'll wait and see what happens. We take that seriously.
That's not the question I asked. I'm asking, in principle, should a government accept the pay review recommendation?
That is normally what happens. Yes, that is normally what takes place. What we're seeing at the moment is far from the normal kind of process. So when you've got a government that has received these reports, won't publish the reports, I think it is incredibly disrespectful. We're almost at the end of the summer term. School leaders want to plan on that basis. They don't know what their budgets are going to be. We need a different kind of relationship. It has to involve respecting teachers for what they're doing. We're not always going to agree. No
Being
one would
straight with them
that.
about how much you've given in pay rises?
If I was Secretary of State, I would absolutely be straight about that. But we're not in government at the moment. When we are in government, if we win the trust of the British people, they will have an honest, straightforward relationship with me. We won't always agree, but I'll be around that table seeking to work it out and get to a better position. That is what our children deserve, not this ridiculous politicking that we see from the Tories.
Teachers are striking for 2 more days next week. Disruptive for pupils, disruptive, of course, for parents as well. Do you support the strikes?
It is incredibly disruptive. I don't want the strikes to happen. Most of the teachers I've spoken to recently when visiting schools tell me the last thing they ever imagined when they became a teacher was going out on strike. And in some cases, this is the first time in their career that very experienced teachers are taking strike action. But there is still time for the Secretary of State to commit to talks, to publish the report, and then hopefully those strikes could be averted.
I want to talk to you a little bit on childcare, a big issue for so many people, of course. What's Labour's offer on childcare?
We'll be setting out more later this week as part of the mission that I'll be launching with Kia around the importance of making sure all of our children get a great start in life. My position is that I want to deliver a reformed and modern childcare system from the end of parental leave to the end of primary school. The first step I've set out around that is breakfast clubs for every primary school child in England. That would make a massive difference during a cost of living crisis for parents, but also for children. All of the evidence is really clear that you get better outcomes for children when you have that start to the day.
In an interview with the Sunday Times in January, you said that the scale and ambition of your childcare reforms would be like the creation of the NHS. And they reported it saying that you wanted to guarantee childcare for all parents of children aged 9 months to 11 years. Are you going to do that for all children and parents, or are you going to means test it?
I'm going to make sure that there are childcare places available right across our country, which is not the situation at the moment, where we have providers closing.
I'm just trying to find out what the policy is, if that's OK. Are you going to guarantee childcare for all parents of children aged 9 months to 11 years, or are you going to means test that?
What I was talking about was the permanent shift that we need to see, where we treat early years education and childcare as an integral part of our education system. That is the permanent shift that I want to see on a scale with the NHS, because what we have in this country is early years education somewhere over here, not integral to the education system. That is very different from most of the European countries. Alongside that, making sure that where we're putting more money into the system, the government did respond to what the pressure that we've been applying and put more money into the system at the budget. That gives us a better baseline from which to build a better system that will support parents, and actually a real focus on quality of the provision, because I want to make sure that particularly our most disadvantaged children get a really good start in life. At the moment, lots of those children are not accessing early years education.
You see, I know how passionate you are about childcare, about the impact it has on children and on mothers as well, perhaps from your own experience. I'm just trying to work out, what happened to these reforms? Did Rachel Reeves get on the phone and say, look, you've got to scale this back, we can't afford this? What actually happened?
Nothing has happened in that way. I'm absolutely determined to deliver early years education and childcare reform. It is a major priority for me. It will be a big priority for the next Labour government. And I know it is for Rachel too. She's spoken about the importance, quite rightly, of the economic impact of women moving out of work or cutting back on their hours because childcare isn't there. But alongside that, I want to see a real focus on making sure that all of our children get a really, really great start in life. But we have to be aware of every part of what we've set out so far has been fully funded and fully costed, and that will continue to be our position. But we will, if we do happen to form the next Labour government, if we're so fortunate that the British people trust us, we will face an incredibly difficult fiscal inheritance, because the Conservatives have trashed the economy, and that will present us with some really tough choices.
There's one other story that I do want to get your reaction to. Catherine Birbal Singh, who is the head teacher of the very high-achieving school, Michaela in Brent in London, She's accused your Shadow Cabinet colleague Jess Phillips of racism after a bit of a Twitter row, and she's written to Keir Starmer to say her behaviour is a clear example of unconscious bias. I mean that she hates me, despite not knowing me, because she subscribes to the idea that Black and Asian individuals in public life owe a duty to voice opinions that match with a left-wing view of the world, or they are worthy of her contempt. What's your reaction to this?
My reaction to anyone who feels unhappy about the conduct of a Labour MP is that they should complain through our processes, and then the matter can be looked into. And as members of Parliament, we're also subject to a code of conduct in Parliament as well, and there are processes in place for people who are unhappy with an MP's behaviour to report it in that way. I would suggest that to any individual that's unhappy about the conduct of a Member of Parliament.
So she thinks, you think that it's right for her to put in an official complaint about this?
I think anyone who is unhappy about the conduct of an MP in any way should make their concerns known, and then they can be properly considered.
Do you think Jess Phillips is racist?
No, I don't. But I think it's important that if people have concerns, if they're unhappy about the conduct of a Member of Parliament, that can be investigated as part of that process.
And just on the wider point as well, it feels like Catherine Berbelsing feels that she is being, I guess, penalised or used as a bit of a lightning rod because doesn't have a left-wing view of the world, and that many people in the teaching profession and in leadership roles in teaching, I guess she would say, do. Do you think there's any truth in that?
When I visit schools the length and breadth of the country, what I find are dedicated people who are focused on making sure children get a great start in life. Very rarely will the conversation drift into politics. What people come into teaching to do, and what people, when they become school leaders, are focused on as well, is delivering really high-quality educations, and that's as it should be.
Would you like to visit the school that she runs?
I visit schools everywhere. I'm always open to invitations to visit schools right across the country. It's the best part of the job.
OK, thank you very much.
Thank you.